Section 1. First Contact and the Shocking Discovery. The first strike came without warning. The colony on Viridian 4, a small but strategically important human outpost, had been thriving for the past decade. Nestled on the outskirts of controlled space, it was primarily a mining and research hub, studying rare minerals and their potential applications in deep space engineering. It wasn't a military installation, nor was it particularly valuable to humanity's growing interstellar presence. And yet, it was the first target in what would become one of the most significant turning points in galactic history. The attack came from the Vordani, a militaristic alien species with centuries of conquest under their belt. To them, war was a game of efficiency, and energy weapons had long been the ultimate tool of destruction. No species had ever adapted to their power. No army had ever withstood their onslaught for long. Their doctrine was simple. Those who fell to energy weaponry deserved extinction. The few who survived had done so only by avoiding direct confrontation. But humanity was different. The unexpected resistance. When the first energy blast struck the colony, the results were as expected. Buildings vaporized under concentrated fire, and machinery overheated and exploded from the sheer intensity of the energy waves. Yet, something inexplicable happened when the Vordani soldiers turned their weapons on the human defenders. At first, human casualties seemed normal. Soldiers collapsed as they were struck, their armor melting away under the intense heat. But then, something remarkable occurred. Some of them got back up. Lieutenant Aaron Voss, one of the commanding officers on the ground, had been shot directly in the chest. Any other species would have perished instantly, their organs fried beyond repair. Yet, Voss gasped as the pain receded quicker than expected. His skin, though burned, began to regenerate at an accelerated rate. A second blast struck him. This time his body absorbed more of the impact. The pain was still there, but it was different. His cells were changing, adapting. By the third blast, Voss wasn't just enduring the attack, his body was actively resisting it. The Vordani warriors, accustomed to quick extermination, hesitated. Their doctrine had no answer for this. Energy weapons were supposed to be the great equalizer, but the longer the battle continued, the less effective they became. Soldiers who had been wounded earlier were now moving with renewed strength. Their injuries, while severe, were healing at an unnatural rate. Some soldiers began showing signs of resistance within minutes, others within hours, but the trend was undeniable. Humans were adapting. Galactic Council's alarm. News of the battle spread quickly beyond Viridian 4. The galactic community, an alliance of dozens of species, convened in an emergency session to assess the implications of this development. Energy weapons were the foundation of interstellar warfare, the technological peak of weaponized destruction. If humanity could resist them, what did that mean for the balance of power? Dr. Vrilek, a Zalari scientist specializing in xenobiology, was one of the first experts assigned to investigate the phenomenon. The Zalari were a highly intelligent, logic-driven species that had long studied the various evolutionary pathways of the galaxy's inhabitants. They had cataloged thousands of species, analyzed the effects of countless environmental variables, and developed predictive models for evolutionary trajectories. Yet, none of their research had ever accounted for a species capable of adapting in real time to energy-based weaponry. As Dr. Vrilek reviewed the initial reports, a creeping sense of unease settled over him. Humanity's homeworld, Earth, was already known for being a brutal crucible of evolution. It had produced creatures capable of surviving extreme environments, bacteria that could resist powerful antibiotics, and a dominant species that thrived under relentless environmental pressure. But even knowing all this, the sheer speed of human adaptation to energy weapons was beyond anything he had ever studied. If this is true, Vrilek murmured to himself, scanning the data, then we are witnessing something unprecedented. A species evolving to counter the most advanced weaponry in the galaxy in real time. The experiment and the revelation. A controlled experiment was soon arranged. The Galactic Council, unwilling to make a final decision on the matter without direct evidence, requested human volunteers for testing. Several human soldiers, all survivors of the Viridian 4 attack, were brought in for controlled energy weapon exposure. At first, they suffered the same as before: pain, burns, trauma. But within hours, the symptoms began to fade. The same intensity of energy blasts that had incapacitated them at the start were now leaving them mostly unharmed. The results were undeniable. Further analysis revealed something even more alarming. Human cells weren't just adapting to the energy. They were restructuring themselves at an unprecedented rate. Their nervous systems were reconfiguring, their metabolic processes were accelerating, and their muscle fibers were reinforcing themselves against external damage. The more exposure they had, the greater their resistance became. Some individuals even showed the ability to conduct absorbed energy through their bodies, discharging it in controlled bursts. Vrilek, normally a composed scientist, felt his hands tremble as he finalized his report. This discovery didn't just change military strategy, it rewrote the fundamental understanding of biology itself. #The Council's Dilemma. As the Galactic Council reconvened, panic spread among the delegates. If humans could adapt to energy weapons, then the balance of power had been irreversibly altered. What would stop them from using this advantage to dominate the galaxy? Some species called for preemptive action, arguing that humanity should be contained before they became an existential threat. Others urged diplomacy, recognizing that aggression against a species capable of such rapid evolution could be disastrous. And yet, underlying all the debates was one unshakable truth. Humanity was no longer just another species in the galactic order. They were something new, something terrifying. The meeting ended without a clear resolution. But in the shadows, factions were already moving, preparing for what would come next. The Vordani, humiliated by their failure at Viridian 4, vowed revenge. Secret military projects were initiated across multiple star systems, aiming to find new methods of warfare that could bypass humanity's growing resistance. And on Earth, scientists, soldiers, and leaders alike realized one thing: the war for survival had only just begun. Section 2. The science behind human adaptation. The revelation that humanity could adapt to energy weapons sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Every known civilization had built their military doctrines around energy-based weaponry for thousands of years. It was considered the ultimate technological equalizer. No armor could withstand it for long. No organic being could survive repeated exposure. Until now. The Galactic Council, still grappling with the implications of what had transpired on Viridian 4, assembled a coalition of the galaxy's brightest scientific minds. Their mission: to analyze, dissect, and understand how humanity had achieved what was thought to be biologically impossible. At the center of this effort was Dr. Vrilek, the renowned Zalari xenobiologist who had already spearheaded the initial research into human adaptability. But the more they studied, the more unsettling the truth became. Unraveling the mystery of human physiology. Dr. Vrilek and his team began their investigation with controlled laboratory experiments. Human test subjects, volunteers from the military who had already demonstrated resistance to energy weapons, were subjected to increasing levels of energy exposure, monitored under strict medical conditions. What they observed was beyond anything the scientific community had ever recorded.
1.
Cellular restructuring in real time. Unlike any other known species, human cells did not merely attempt to repair damage. They actively rewrote themselves in response to energy exposure. Under high energy bursts, cell membranes thickened and became more heat-resistant. DNA sequences modified themselves at a speed previously thought impossible outside of genetic engineering. This wasn't just healing, it was a fundamental transformation at the cellular level.
2.
Neurological and metabolic adaptation. More alarming than the physical resilience was the neurological response. Human nervous systems started adapting to energy conductivity. Test subjects reported initially feeling intense pain, followed by a strange numbing sensation and then a heightened awareness of energy fields. Their brains adjusted to the new stimuli, developing resistance to the neural overload that energy blasts typically inflicted on biological creatures. Some even reported being able to sense incoming energy attacks before they happened. Metabolically, humans were changing too. Normally, exposure to high-energy plasma or directed energy weapons would cause severe burns and organ failure. But within hours, these subjects exhibited increased metabolic efficiency, converting absorbed energy into useful biological functions. In extreme cases, some began producing faint energy discharges from their own bodies, a phenomenon that hinted at offensive adaptation. 3. Patterns of accelerated evolution ****. Dr. Vrelek cross-referenced these findings with Earth's evolutionary history. What he discovered was staggering. Humans had always been exceptional survivors. Their immune systems could develop resistances to diseases that wiped out other species. Their bodies had adapted to extreme climates, from frozen tundras to scorching deserts. Their muscles and bones strengthened under stress, allowing them to push past normal biological limits. But now, exposed to the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, this adaptive capability was reaching terrifying new levels. This is not mere biological resilience, Dr. Vrelek recorded in his final report. This is forced evolution in real time, at a speed no species should be capable of. If left unchecked, there is no telling what the upper limits of human adaptation could be. ##### Implications for warfare and galactic politics. As word of these findings spread, the galactic powers found themselves divided. #######. The military response. The first to act were the various military factions of the Galactic Council. If humans could evolve beyond energy weapons, then the entire structure of warfare needed to be reevaluated. Some species began investing in kinetic weaponry, a long-abandoned field of warfare that relied on projectile-based arms, explosives, and brute-force physical impact. Weapons that had been considered outdated for centuries suddenly became relevant again: railguns, Gauss cannons, even chemically propelled firearms. The Vordani, still seething from their humiliating defeat at Viridian 4, took a more drastic approach. Reports surfaced that they were developing anti-evolutionary bioweapons designed to target the mechanisms that allowed human adaptation. If they couldn't kill humans with energy, they would attack their very ability to adapt. #######. Scientific and ethical concerns. Not everyone saw humanity's evolution as a threat. Many scientists, including Dr. Vrelek, argued that what was happening was a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, something that could benefit all species. If human adaptability could be studied and understood, perhaps other civilizations could find ways to harness similar traits. Could diseases be eradicated by teaching immune systems to adapt at the same rate as humans? Could species on dying worlds learn to evolve faster to survive their changing climates? Others, however, warned of the dangers of playing with such forces. If humans could adapt to energy weapons, what else might they evolve to withstand? Could they eventually become resistant to radiation? To biological warfare? Could they become immune to aging, effectively reaching a form of forced immortality? The Council was paralyzed by indecision. Was humanity the greatest discovery in history, or the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known? ######. The birth of Project Aegis. While the galactic powers argued, humanity was already moving forward. Project Aegis was formed in secret, a military and scientific initiative designed to harness this newfound ability. Under the supervision of both human and alien researchers, volunteers were subjected to increasingly intense energy-based training regimens. Their bodies were pushed to the limits, their nervous systems tested under extreme conditions. Some developed advanced resistance in mere days. A handful of subjects displayed even more aggressive adaptations, beginning to absorb and redirect energy at will. One soldier, Commander Elias Carter, became the program's most remarkable success. Initial testing showed he had not only adapted to energy weapons, but had developed the ability to generate energy pulses from his body. He could discharge absorbed energy in controlled bursts, effectively turning the enemy's weapons against them. This is no longer just adaptation, one scientist remarked, watching Carter train. This is evolution as a weapon. As Project Aegis expanded, one question loomed over everyone involved. Asterisk, asterisk, how far could this go? Asterisk, asterisk. Would humanity become the greatest force of defense the galaxy had ever seen? Or were they about to create something the universe could never contain? Hashtag, 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 the tipping point. As the galaxy debated, as new weapons were developed, as Project Aegis continued pushing the limits of human evolution, an undeniable truth settled over all those who watched from the shadows. The age of energy weapons was coming to an end, and humanity was no longer just surviving. They were evolving beyond war itself. Asterisk, asterisk. Hashtag, 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 Section 3. War breaks out, and humanity changes the rules. The warning signs had been there for months. Ever since the events at Viridian 4 and the subsequent discoveries regarding human adaptability, tensions in the galactic community had been rising. Though the Galactic Council had attempted to maintain order, it was clear that the balance of power was shifting, and not everyone was comfortable with the change. The Vordani, humiliated by their failure to crush humanity, were the first to escalate. Reports emerged that they were stockpiling weapons and mobilizing fleets near human space. Meanwhile, other species, those who once considered energy weapons the ultimate deterrent, began preparing for an inevitable conflict. But despite the mounting pressure, it was not humanity that struck first. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the first strike and the galactic divide. It began with the massacre at Epsilon Eridani. A human fleet, stationed near a neutral trading hub, was attacked without warning by a Vordani strike force. Unlike their previous engagements, this time the Vordani did not rely solely on energy weapons. They came equipped with new technologies, asterisk, asterisk, kinetic railguns, chemical explosives, and even biological agents designed to disrupt human physiology, asterisk, asterisk. The initial assault was devastating. The first wave of soldiers, humans who had already adapted to energy weaponry, were cut down by physical projectiles before they could react. The Vordani had learned from their mistakes. But what they hadn't accounted for was humanity's ability to adapt to more than just energy. Even as bodies fell, survivors began analyzing the new threat. They observed how railgun rounds tore through armor, how the air was laced with toxins meant to slow their regenerative properties. And, just like before, they started to change. Within hours, those who had survived the first attack were already showing signs of neuromuscular adjustments, reacting faster to kinetic weapons, predicting impact trajectories with uncanny precision. Their immune systems neutralized the toxins quicker than expected, forcing the Vordani to retreat in frustration. The battle sent a clear message to the galaxy. Humanity wasn't just adapting to energy weapons. They were adapting to war itself. Asterisk, asterisk. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the birth of a new battlefield. The massacre at Epsilon Eridani fractured the Galactic Council. Some races, fearing that humanity was now an uncontrollable force of nature, aligned with the Vordani, believing preemptive war was the only option. Others, horrified by the unprovoked attack, sided with humanity, recognizing that trying to exterminate a species capable of rapid evolution was a dangerous gamble. Lines were drawn, treaties were broken, and the first full-scale interstellar war in over 1,000 years began. But the war did not unfold as the anti-human factions had expected. Every tactic, every strategy that had worked in previous wars quickly became obsolete. Standard military doctrines had been built on energy weapons, calculated engagements, and careful attrition. But against humanity, none of it worked for long. With each battle, human soldiers grew more resilient. At the Battle of Draconis Prime, Vordani warships unleashed a new form of plasma bombardment, believing sheer volume of fire would overwhelm even adaptive biology. Within days, human ground forces had developed protective bioresonant armor, generated by their own evolving physiology. At the Siege of Halcyon 7, kinetic weapons were deployed en masse against human strongholds. The first wave suffered losses, but within weeks, Survivors had enhanced reaction times and muscle density, allowing them to dodge or withstand impacts that would have been fatal before. At the ambush at Vega 12, an elite squad of human warriors, known as Project Aegis, unveiled their most terrifying ability yet. The ability to redirect energy attacks, absorbing and discharging them like living weapons. What should have been a one-sided slaughter turned into a crushing victory, as soldiers turned enemy fire back on their attackers with devastating precision. It was no longer just a war. It was an evolutionary arms race. Hashtag Captain Elias Carter and the turning point. By the third year of the war, one name had become legendary across the galaxy: Captain Elias Carter. A survivor of Viridian 4 and the face of Project Aegis, Carter had become the first confirmed case of full-spectrum adaptation. Unlike most humans, who required time to adjust to new threats, Carter's body responded almost instantly. He could absorb energy, resist kinetic impact, and even endure extreme environmental hazards. His legend was cemented at the Battle of Karux Maw, where an overwhelming force of Vordani warships attempted to annihilate a human fleet in a narrow asteroid field. When the enemy unleashed a planet-cracker weapon, Carter led a team of soldiers into the heart of the attack. He absorbed the immense energy discharge, channeling it into his armor. He redirected the energy into a massive counterattack, destroying an entire warship with his bare hands. The surviving Vordani fled in terror, spreading stories of the human god of war. For the first time in the war, the anti-human coalition began to break. Some species, once eager to exterminate humanity, now sought peace. Others, fearing that continued conflict would only make humans stronger, began surrendering outright. The fear of what humanity might become was greater than their hatred. But the Vordani? They refused to yield. Hashtag the desperate gamble. Realizing they were losing the war, the Vordani leaders devised a final, desperate plan. The total annihilation of Earth. If humanity could not be beaten on the battlefield, then they would be destroyed at their source. A massive fleet was assembled, carrying a doomsday weapon designed to shatter Earth's biosphere, ensuring no further adaptation could occur. But humanity was ready. In a final, desperate stand, every adapted soldier, every evolved warrior, every survivor of Project Aegis gathered in defense of their homeworld. And at the center of it all was Captain Carter, humanity's ultimate evolution. The battle that followed would be remembered as the day war itself changed forever. And when the dust settled, the galaxy would never be the same. Hashtag Section 4. The final battle and the dawn of a new era. The Vordani extermination fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm blotting out the stars. Thousands of warships, bristling with kinetic weapons, biological payloads, and experimental technology, stood poised to deliver their final, crushing blow. Their goal was simple: eradicate Earth and ensure humanity's terrifying evolution never reached its full potential. But the humans had been expecting them. In the 3 years of brutal war, humanity had done more than just survive. They had adapted, evolved, and in some cases, become something more than their ancestors could have ever imagined. And now, for the first time in history, a species stood ready not just to defend itself, but to change the nature of war forever. Hashtag the Battle of Earth, a new kind of war. When the Vordani opened fire, they unleashed the most devastating weapons the galaxy had ever seen. Planet-cracker warheads, radiation bombs, and antimatter lances rained down toward Earth's surface. But none of them landed. At the front lines of the battle, soldiers of Project Aegis stood on defense platforms, space stations, and even open vacuum battlefields. These warriors, enhanced beyond recognition, had long surpassed simple energy resistance. Some absorbed the incoming energy blasts and redirected them back at enemy warships like living artillery. Others, who had adapted to kinetic force, shattered railgun rounds mid-flight with reinforced musculature or redirected their trajectories using electromagnetic pulses emitted from their own bodies. The most advanced among them, including Captain Elias Carter, no longer relied on conventional weapons at all. Their very presence in battle altered the course of the fight. Carter himself leapt from the surface of Earth into the vacuum of space, unhindered by a lack of oxygen, and dove directly into the heart of the Vordani command vessel. There, as his body pulsed with the energy of 1,000 stolen blasts, he sent out a final message across the enemy fleet. You tried to burn us. We became fire. You tried to crush us. We became steel. You tried to end us. We became something greater. The war ends now. And with that, he unleashed the accumulated energy of the entire battle in a single, world-shaking discharge. The Vordani flagship was erased from existence, a blinding explosion of light that rippled across the void. At that moment, the entire Vordani fleet broke, their commanders dead, their weapons rendered useless against an enemy who grew stronger with every attack, their resolve finally shattered. They turned and fled. Humanity had won. #, the aftermath. The galaxy changes forever. The war had ended, but the implications of humanity's evolution were only just beginning. With the destruction of the Vordani war machine, the Galactic Council was forced to acknowledge a new reality. Humanity was no longer a minor species struggling for survival. They had become something greater, something the rest of the galaxy could no longer control. Some races feared what humanity might become. They argued for sanctions, containment, even preemptive strikes before human evolution spiraled even further beyond comprehension. But others saw the truth. The war had changed humanity, but it had changed the galaxy, too. #, a new galactic order. In the wake of the war, humanity did not seek revenge. They did not demand the extermination of the Vordani or the subjugation of their former enemies. Instead, they offered something unexpected: cooperation. They shared what they had learned. Human scientists, working alongside former enemy biologists, helped struggling species develop new forms of adaptive medicine. Soldiers from Project Aegis trained alien warriors in the art of survival, not as conquerors, but as teachers. And in a moment that stunned the entire galaxy, Captain Elias Carter stood before the Galactic Council and spoke words that would be remembered for millennia. We are not gods. We are not monsters. We are what the universe made us. And if we can evolve to withstand your weapons, then perhaps we can evolve to bring peace, too. It was not a promise. It was not a threat. It was a challenge for the galaxy to grow, to adapt, to become more than a collection of stagnant empires fighting the same old wars. And for the first time in known history, the galaxy listened. #, the final evolution, beyond war. Years passed, and the fear of humanity slowly transformed into something else. Where once they had been seen as a threat, they were now seen as a beacon of possibility. Where once the galaxy had feared change, it now embraced it. The warriors of Project Aegis became more than soldiers. They became explorers, diplomats, guardians of worlds that had once feared them. Some traveled to the far reaches of space, seeking out other species who had never known war, helping them prepare for the challenges of the wider universe. And at the heart of it all, Captain Elias Carter remained. He never aged, never weakened. His body had adapted beyond the limits of human time itself. Some whispered that he had become something more than human, something beyond evolution. A living legend. He simply called himself a survivor. And as he looked toward the stars, toward the endless frontier of the unknown, he knew the truth. The war had not made humanity stronger. Humanity had made war irrelevant, for they had evolved beyond it. And the galaxy at long last would follow,